Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing defining the computer forensic process, section 2. I am Dr. Chanel Suggs, the Duchess of Cybersecurity, the author and instructor for this course. Today we'll be discussing understanding cyber laws. This is going to be video 2 for section 2. When we look at 18 U.S.C. 1029, this is going to be for fraud and related activities in connection with access devices. So this is for someone that knowingly, with intent to defraud procedures, or produces, uses, or traffics in one or more counterfeit access devices, as well as intent to defraud, traffics in, or uses one or more of the unauthorized access devices during, for example, a year. So conducting and obtaining anything of value that aggregates, for example, $1,000 or more during that 1 year period, or knowing and with intent to defraud possesses 15 or more devices, for example, which are counterfeit, as well as intending to fraud, produce traffics when it comes to control of custody, looking at device making equipment, defrauding the effects of transactions with one or more access devices that could be issued to another person or persons, and they use this in order to receive payments or anything of value during, for example, a 1 year period. And the value is going to be either equal to or greater than 1,000. Also, without authorization to issue of the access devices, knowing the intent to defraud or solicit for the purposes of offering an access device or selling that information regarding or an application to obtain the access device. Also, this relates to, for example, defrauding uses and traffics when it comes to control or custody, possesses of telecommunication instruments, for example, unauthorized use of those telecommunication services. Also, looking at scanning devices as well as modifying telecommunications, identifying information that can be associated or containing telecommunications instruments to obtain telecommunication services without authorization, as well as obtaining authorization for credit card systems that is not authorized, knowingly an intent to defraud causes, as well as looking at arranging for another person to present to that person our agent regarding payment by using or by accessing the access device. So whenever you're looking at this particular statute, you can be in prison up to 15 years or more. It's based on whichever one of the penalties that will fall under based on what has been charged. So if we look at Rule 502, which we discussed previously, which is going to be the attorney-client privileges. So within this area, you have the limitations when it comes to waivers, when it comes to the attorney-client privileges, as well as the work product. So for example, disclosures that have been made within a federal proceeding, a federal office, or agency. Looking at the scope of that waiver. The disclosure and undisclosure of communications, as well as information concerning the same subject matter. Looking at fairness to be considered. Looking at inadvertent disclosures as well. Disclosures that are made in state proceedings. Looking at controlling the effect of a court order, as well as party agreements, effects of this rule. So whenever you're looking at the attorney-client privilege, this means to protect what is applicable laws that provides for confidential attorney-client communications, as well as the work product protection for tangible materials that prepared within anticipation of litigation or for trial. Up next, we have the 18 U.S.C. 1361-2, looking at prohibiting malicious mischief. So whenever you're looking at 1361, this is where we're looking at government property, as well as those contracts. Looking at someone that willfully injures or commits any types of depreciation against any property of the United States, as well as departments or agencies, as well as property which has been or is being manufactured or constructed within the United States or any department or agency, as well as attempts to commit any of the foregoing offenses. So damages to property exceeds the sum of 1,000. For example, a fine under this title is going to be for imprisonment for more than 10 years. If you are interested in doing additional research when it comes to malicious mischief, there are additional items that are noted under Chapter 65, which will give you all this information related to 1361 when it comes to government property or contracts, as well as 1362 when it comes to communication lines, stations, or systems, 1363 when it comes to buildings or property with special maritime, as well as territorial jurisdictions, 1364 when it comes to interference with foreign commerce by violence, 1365 tampering with consumer products, 1366 is going to be destruction of an energy facility. 1367 is going to be interference with the operations of a satellite. 1368 is going to be referring to harming animals that are used within law enforcement. And 1369 is going to be related to your destruction of veterans' memorials. So as you go through this course, always feel free to look for additional information when it comes to understanding the laws when it comes to cyber forensics, because this will give you more of an advantage within your career, especially when it comes to doing proper forensics investigations, to know what statutes does this map to within an organization. If we were to look back at Code 1362, communication lines, stations, or systems, this is where someone willfully or maliciously injures as well as destroys any of the works, properties, or material of any radio, telegraph, telephone, or cable, line, station, or system, or means of communications operated or controlled by the United States, are intended to be used for the military or the civil defense functions within the United States, whether constructed or process of construction, willfully or maliciously interferes in any way when it comes to working of any of these lines or systems. So when you're looking at this area, the things to think about is if someone was to disable communications, what methods would you go back in order to identify who was this person? So looking back over the areas that we discussed it previously in the last video to give you the proper steps, noting, making sure you have the proper policies in place, the proper procedures of how the investigation should be conducted in order to determine who was the person that damaged the property and how you're going to collect this evidence in order to present it in a court of law. These are all areas that must be considered, even when you're looking at the various laws to compare to the overall requirements that will be needed for evidence collection, as well as understanding the full measures of the incident and all that it entails. So here we have Rule 705, which is disclosure of facts or data underlining the expert opinion. So this is an expert that may state an opinion as well as give the reasons for it without first testifying to the underlying facts of that data. So when it comes to being an expert witness, this is typically someone that has experience in the field and has been doing this for a very long time. They typically understand the rules, the statutes, as well as how to properly collect evidence when it comes to computer forensics, as well as how it relates to the case that they are testifying regarding the incidents that occurred, for example, within an organization. So next we have 1030, which is going to be the fraud and related activities in connection with computers. So this is someone who knowingly accesses a computer that doesn't have authorization or exceeds their authorized access by conducting or having obtained information that has been determined by the United States government pursuant to, for example, the executive order or the statute to require protection against unauthorized disclosure for reasons of national defense or foreign relations, as well as restricted data. So intentionally accessing a computer without authorization or exceeding that access. Information contained, for example, within your financial records, within a financial institution, your card issuer information, information from any department or agency of the United States, as well as information that is protected protected on your computer. Looking at intentionally without authorization accessing any non-public computer, for example, of a department agency within the United States, accessing a computer that the department or agency is exclusively for the government of the United States. In the case of a computer not exclusively for such use, then it's used for or by the government of the United States, as well as conducting effects that used by or for the government of the United States. So knowingly, as well as intentionally accessing protected computers without authorization or exceeding that authorization access, knowingly causing transmissions of program information, code, or commands, as a result, intentionally causing damage without authorization. When it comes to a protected computer, intentionally accessing a protected computer without authorization, such a way to result in recklessness causing damage, or intentionally accessing a protected computer without authorization, which causes damage as well as loss. Looking at your defraud traffics as well. Also, as we discussed before in section 1029, trafficking effects with the intent to extort from any person as well as for money or any other value. Threat to cause damage when it comes to a protected computer. Threat to obtain information from a protected computer without authorization. Demand or requested money of things of value in relation to damaging a protected system as well. Conspiring to commit as well as attempting to commit offense under the subsections. So when it comes to the fines, you can get up to 10 years of imprisonment, but not more than 20 years. And it's also based on the overall evidence and what has been charged. Here we have Rule 608, which is evidence of character and conduct witness. So this is going to be looking at the opinion and the reputation evidence of the character. So the credibility of that witness, it could be attacked or supported by the evidence within a form of opinions or as well as their reputation, but it's going to be subject to various limitations. So the evidence may refer to only to that character truthfulness or their untruthfulness. So it could be evidence for truthful character with admissibility only after that character of the witness for truthfulness has been attacked. For example, specific incidents when it comes to conduct as well. The purpose of attacking or supporting the witness credibility, it may not prove to be extrinsic evidence. So sometimes it comes to be provable of the truthfulness or the untruthfulness of that cross-examination when it comes to the witness. This goes to basically referring to a lot of the crime shows that you see on TV these days. By looking at Criminal Minds, looking at Law and Order, and you see how whenever there is a character witness or a witness that they are questioning on the stand. It goes by which side is questioning, because one side may try to basically look at the character of the person that they are using as a witness to tear down the character, and the other one might try to figure out ways to show their truthfulness as to the reason why they are a character witness for this overall trial. So here we have Rule 4.2. This is going to be regarding relevant evidence, generally admissible, or irrelevant evidence, inadmissible. So one thing to understand is that not all of the information or the evidence is going to be admissible in a court of law. And this can vary based on whatever the situation may be. And it may be because of various rules. Those are made by the rules of civil and criminal procedures, for example, bankruptcy rules, as well as the Act of Congress, or by constitutional considerations. Up next, we have Rule 1002, which is the requirements of the original. So this rule relates to having the original photographs or writings or recordings in order to prove its content, unless these rules or federal statutes note or provide otherwise. Up next, we have Rule 1003, discussing admissibility of duplicates. So this is the extent that the original, unless a genuine question is raised about the original's authenticity, are circumstances that make it unfair to admit the duplicate. So looking at the accuracy and precision, the counterpart serves equally as the original. The genuineness as well, and assuring a method to ensure accuracy. This concludes this section on understanding cyber laws. So within this area, we went through various statutes. We also made sure we went through the fraud and related activities in connection with computers because it's very important for this course. We also went through fraud and related activities in connection with access devices, for example, as well as admissibility. Up next, we'll be going over real-world examples of cybercrime. This is going to be video 3 for section 2.